the way we are hardwired is that we are actually wired to be more collaborative, and men the other way around. And yet what's happened is a direct reversal. And so again, this goes back to the patriarchy and men running institutions, women at those times not really being allowed. I mean, when we go back historically, women weren't allowed to work outside the home. And I do mean weren't allowed, because if jobs were not created, education was not supported.
That's right.
Freedom, basic freedoms for women. If you got divorced, the man got the children.
But you weren't allowed to get divorced.
Right, you weren't allowed. And then when you were, the man got the children, the man got, so any money that you had,
women weren't allowed to own property. I mean, you know, it was
they weren't allowed to own property. And actually in the US, it wasn't until, so Billie Jean King, here, imagine, Billie Jean King, greatest at that time tennis player in the world. I mean, really, to watch her, phenomenal when I think back as a child watching her. And I didn't realize this until much later when she had shared this story that, don't quote me, I think it was like 1972 or 73, somewhere in there. She went to go get a credit card. And here she had a salary where she was being paid more money than most men in the United States, in this country. And she could not get a credit card because the conversation was, well, where's your husband? Your husband has to co-sign for you, bring him in. And she's like, what? I don't have a husband. I have a better career than most men. I make more money than most men. Why do I need a man to sign and be a, you know, I'm going to be a co-applicant with him. And so that really started to shift. And then
Hello everyone, I'm Suzanne Poole. Welcome to Be You with Suzanne Poole. Get your sexy back, where I interview in bite-sized pieces interesting, inspiring women that I have in my life and am connected with. And today I am delighted to be joined direct from the United States and New York City, Holland Haas. Holland is a coach, a TV broadcaster, and an author of Conscious Leadership. That's your book, isn't it? What's the name of your book?
Consciously Connecting.
Consciously Connecting. That's right. Thank you for correcting me, Holland. Holland is a published author and a coach of Consciously Connecting. And it's great to have you with us, Holland. How are you?
Thanks for having me, Suzanne. I've been looking forward to this.
I always look forward to speaking with you too. So
we have fun, don't we?
We do. We have lively debate. We have lively discussion, politics, fixing the world, gender debate, like the whole gamut. But today we're going to, like, what would you know, one of the reasons that I invited you to be interviewed and feature on the channel is because I think you're really interesting, and I love your sparkiness and what it is that you're about and the difference that you make for executive women and women in leadership. So, like, why don't you tell us about that and your book and, like, share? Let's hear.
All right. Well, for 2+ decades, I have been working with different groups of women with really stepping up to own and come from their place of power, because as women, that hasn't always been the journey for many of us. And part of that is what I refer to as generational dysfunction that has happened. So it wasn't ill-meaning mothers or grandmothers or sisters. There was a time we just didn't know any better. And now we have better tools. We understand the world a little differently. We are better educated, well-traveled. And so that changes the context of how we not only relate to ourselves, it changes the context of the conversation, how we interrelate with others, and how we support women. So I love talking about this, and again, love really helping women come from that place of power.
So I'm curious about the kind of intergenerational aspect of it. Like, say a bit more about that. Yeah.
Well, I often use the example when I'm speaking to groups where when we think about back in the day and we think about sports. So in the US, when a girl went into sports, it's different now. You know, we have soccer, or as you call it, football. It didn't exist when I went to school. If I did something sport-wise, it was more, I was solo. I wasn't part of, when you think of football, when you think of basketball, which again, girls basketball wasn't really a thing. When you think of soccer, football, baseball, those tend to be very team, and you learn the dynamic of working together as a team.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I went to school, it was the individual relay race, if it was track and field, it was gymnastics. And again, all of this is coming from a place of competition, not only with yourself, not really team-oriented competition with others.
Mm-hmm.
And what I talk about when I'm sharing intergenerational dysfunction is that how often have you ever heard men sitting in the stands saying, oh my gosh, look at Mikey. Did he put on a few pounds over the summer? Like, he looks heavy in his football or his baseball uniform. We don't ever hear that because we're not looking at the body. We're looking at the performance. We're looking at the individual. Whereas with girls and women, numerous times as a child, I can remember hearing other mothers making a comment, a critical comment, if a little girl was in her ballet outfit or her gymnastic outfit. And again, those are very different in the way they fit. So again, just girls and boys and in the way we're creating those uniforms. Here, oh my goodness, did little Robin gain a few pounds over the summer? She ballet. And so that is the intergenerational dysfunction that I ask women and men to think about, because what's happened is from a very young age, we have those impressions, right? That's a type of bias. Mm-hmm. We have those impressions, and then we carry that forward. And then when Suzanne and Holland get together on a team or to do a project, right? We hear those tapes and it may not be conscious. However, what starts to happen is, as women, we're thinking back to the structure of what it was like for us when we were younger, that we weren't a part of a team, that it's going to be me who wins or Suzanne who wins. And I want to be the winner instead of we can both win.
Yeah, so it's like that's really interesting now. You mentioned that. Like, I remember, women can be quite bitchy to each other. Like, that's the bottom line, is that we're quite mean to each other.
And yet, what's really interesting, Suzanne, about that is that the way we are hardwired is that we are actually wired to be more collaborative, and men the other way around. And yet what's happened is a direct reversal. And so again, this goes back to the patriarchy and men running institutions, women at those times not really being allowed. I mean, when we go back historically, women weren't allowed to work outside the home. And I do mean weren't allowed, because if jobs were not created, education was not supported.
That's right.
Freedom, basic freedoms for women. If you got divorced, the man got the children.
You weren't allowed to get divorced.
Right? You weren't allowed. And then when you were, the man got the children, the man got, so any money that you had,
women weren't allowed to own property. I mean, it was
they weren't allowed to own property. And actually in the US, it wasn't until, so Billie Jean King, here, imagine Billie Jean King, greatest at that time tennis player in the world. I mean, really, to watch her, phenomenal when I think back as a child watching her. And I didn't realize this until much later when she had shared this story that, don't quote me, I think it was like 1972 or 73, somewhere in there. She went to go get a credit card. And here she had a salary where she was being paid more money than most men in the United States, in this country. And she could not get a credit card because the conversation was, well, where's your husband? Your husband has to co-sign for you, bring him in. And she's like, what? I don't have a husband. I have a better career than most men. I make more money than most men. Why do I need a man to to sign and be I'm going to be a co-applicant with him. And so that really started to shift. And then I think it was, again, not 100% clear, 74 or 1975, somewhere in there, then when this conversation started to come full circle and things changed.
Yeah,
so see, that's about that, not that long ago.
No, I mean, I was born in 74, so it's like, it's just kind of the length of my lifetime. And it's, it's funny. It's like, I remember someone quite well known from the UK telling me about, she's a well-known journalist, and she was telling me about getting her first mortgage in about 1973, and her father had to co-sign the mortgage, had to guarantee the mortgage for her because she wasn't married. And she had a good career as a journalist. She was employed by a very well-known organisation in the UK, but the banks wouldn't lend her money because she was an unmarried woman. And it's like, pardon? And I mean, I remember, it's just like, that's really unbelievable, that even in the 70s. But, I mean, we only got the right to vote in the US, 1920, I think it was in the US, and 1908 in the UK. It's like, it's not even that, like, it's barely 100 years since we've had the right to vote. I know, it's shocking when you think about it. So how do you kind of work with this? How do you work with women, or is it people, like, to sort of support this bizarre intergenerational conversation and kind of like stop us being bitchy to each other, essentially?
Yeah. Well, again, it's really, if we take a step back, we've got to look at the areas in our life where we are disconnected, and where we do not own our power. And so at the top, you had mentioned my book, and that was part of the reason that I wrote the book, Consciously Connecting, because it's really about being conscious, being aware to where your areas of connection are in your life and where the areas of disconnect are. And so the way the book is broken down is, it is the 12 months of the year. Each month has a theme. And then within that theme, there are 4 weekly lessons. So it's never create the bucket list of where you want to travel. It's not that kind of book. It's really about finding that place of personal power. We look at goals, we look at boundaries, we look at what would now be called self-care. I call it playtime in June. It's about going out and playing. We forget that, July is all around the theme in the US, since we have Independence Day. It's really about that piece of where you are and are not independent, where you are relying on yourself versus not, and where you need to power up, if you will. And so that was a tool that was created to help not just women, it helps men as well. I have a CFO right now. He read the book and loved it. And it was never planned for men. It was really a little more geared, the idea behind it, for women. Men enjoy it just as much, because let's face it, we're all human. We all have shared experiences, and we all are disconnected in certain places in our lives. It's a wonderful tool that I use along with programs that I have created, programming for, again, men and women, which is I share this either from the stage, or it is shared internally with organizations, with corporations, to really help people to level up in their lives, both professionally, which then also translates to personally as well. So it's looking at the way you communicate. It's looking at the impact of your time management and your productivity. It's looking at the impact of your relationship ROI. Are you transactional? Are you relational? And so it goes.
Wow, amazing. I haven't read it. I am now wanting to get a copy of it. So where can I do that? Like, how about telling us about that?
Sure. You can get a copy on my website. It's got links. So whether you want
to.
Yes. So if you go to hollandhaas.com, there is a tab for the book. You can order it right there. It'll make it really easy. You can choose where you want it distributed from, and then you can get that and let me know how that read is.
Okay, great. And everybody, you can find the link to Holland's website underneath in the description of the underneath this video. So have a look underneath the video. Okay, great. And yeah, so is that also the way that people can find out more about what it is that you do and connect with you that way? What's the best way to connect with you?
Best way to connect with me is one of two ways. You can go to my website and you can drop me a line, and we can, there's a calendar link. You can also reach out on LinkedIn and leave me a message as well, and we can have a conversation there. And right. What I would love to offer those who are your fans, followers, and fabulous people will say, I will offer a complimentary 15-minute call to help you strategize on those areas where you may be feeling either you personally, your team, your organization has some areas of disconnect. Let's have a conversation about that, how I can help you. I can share some strategies in that 15-minute call. So in the notes on the calendar link or in the notes on my website, just write Suzanne.
Very good. Great. And I can recommend spending time with Holland. I always enjoy a lively discussion with Holland whenever we get together. So take advantage of the conversation because it will be worth your time. Holland Haas, has been delightful spending time with you today and interviewing you for Get Your Sexy Back, Be You with Suzanne Paul. Click on the subscribe button underneath as well, because you want to subscribe to the channel. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me, Suzanne.
It's a pleasure. Looking forward to talking with you again, Holland. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.